Hi folks, FlyQ stands for I have questions. It stands for the Flyfisher's IQ, and it also stands for my personal learning quest. I am a learner of fly casting, and I don't want to be associated with the teachers of fly casting anymore, with the fly casting instructors. And the reason for that is that I'm extremely pissed off by the behavior of these fly casting instructors, and that I am of the opinion that I am the most controlled caster in the world, and the FlyQ is my reaction to be getting banned and bullied even from the Irish Casting Committee. Now the whole FlyQ series is my reaction to all this negativity that fly casting instructors bring to the table if they see my work, and I explain you why. And maybe you've noticed this, I don't know, but a lot of fly casting instructors come across as quite arrogant to me in this business and quite know-it-all. But if you start asking questions, they get really pissed off, and I want to show you what I am on about. The thing that I want to demonstrate you, I don't even need a full rod for that, a half a rod will do. And that is my big problem with this doctrine, or with these people, is if I ask questions, they have no answers for them. And a couple of questions, I don't know, have you seen my wave spay video? If not, go to there. Here it is. Because I say that our loop is wrong. Yeah? And I want to demonstrate you why that loop is wrong. If I take this rod and move it around in a circle, like this here now, I can also, here now, I can also do the same thing over my head. Can you see a loop now? No? Yes. That's why there is no loop. And when does this, what we call loop, even happen? See? The loop only happens if you shock the rod. There is a vibration going through this rod, and these vibrations can be stronger or less strong, and they can be over the rod tip or under the rod tip. But once you start to understand this, there is no loop here now, yeah? No loop. And that loop only forms or evolves if I shock that rod. That shock. And shock as vibration makes that loop. And I have more problems with that loop thing, because it is a two-dimensional view on things. Once you start understanding that, you have a total different view on these angles too. And my other problem is, let's step out a bit further here, that nobody knows when this loop starts or ends. Yeah? This here is called a non-loop, even in fly casting lingo. Now, see how inconsistent that is? In 1885, Mr. David Webster wrote a book that was called The Angler and the Loop Rod. And back in the day, the rods didn't even have eyes on them. There was only just the top eye, And this top eye was a loop made out of horsehair. And this is why the fly rod in that context is called the loop rod. Has absolutely nothing to do with the casting loop as we call it. And I say, if you want to develop on the highest levels of control, you have to forget about this wrong and negative concept of the loop. Why is it negative? Why can I say this concept is negative? How dare I? Because the flyfishers are totally in love with this loop, and that is nearly a problem if you dare criticize that thing. And that is because the flyfishers got brainwashed with this loop thing. And that came along in the 1950s, 1960s with the development of the AFTMA system, of the AFTMA, American Fly Fishing Tackle Manufacturers Association. So the loop is in fact nothing but a marketing gag, okay? And that marketing gag goes like this. You buy a new rod because this rod can form a tighter loop. And this is how millions of fly fishers fell to that gag. And also fly casting promoters or influencers promoting this very heavily. One of them being Lefty Gray. Have you ever heard of Lefty Gray? Lefty Gray became so popular because he took that arm from under the... He told the British to take a book from under the arm and take the arm out and go a longer way because you can throw a tighter loop. And my next problem I have with this loop is nobody knows or can tell you where that loop starts or ends. Now I have no loop. Now I have no loop. And now I would have what is called a D loop, but it still is no loop. Per definition, my dear friends, in the lexicon, a loop has to be touching or overlapping. That is a loop by definition. But this here, this D, what is called a D, it's not a loop, it's just a sack of line hanging there. And that's a conceptual mistake in the whole thinking of casting. And I don't care if fly casting instructors like that or not, it's just fucking wrong. Because the next thing is, and this is how AFTMA works like this. Someone, and that someone could cast very well, a top class caster, defined this amount of weight of line and this amount of line has to load this rod to throw your optimum tight loop. But these rules are made from supercasters for supercasters. If you start out now casting, and I told you in previous episodes, this is by the way episode number 5 of the FlyQ series, not number 1, episode number 5. In previous episodes I told you that we have casting panic and that we're always too fast through the cast. And these faster and faster rods made by people who can cast and expect you to be able to cast as well are part of the reason why many people struggle so hard to learn this game. Okay? So if you ask people when does this loop start, when does it end, and my question is there, FlyQ question, what makes the cast? What exactly is it that makes the cast? Let's take the example of a bow and arrow cast. On a bow and arrow cast, oops. You have tension, you have a load in this rod, and you just shoot the line. And that makes the cast. In the principles of fly casting, there's one principle that says you have to stop the rod. There is a principle that says you must stop the rod. Now, if we're already with bursting bubbles and loops and bullshit in fly casting, I think that stop is also a bullshit, because if I put a load in this rod, the only thing that rod will do by itself is become straight. Okay? And if I let go of this rod now, she'll make a beautiful cast. She'll make a beautiful, beautiful cast. What? I'm using only the top section of the 4-piece rod here. I'm sorry, it's a 3-piece rod. Energy float feeder, by the way. And even if I move that rod while I let go, it still will make a cast. Watch this. To show you this again. That means what people tell you in casting is nothing but a load of crap. Because stopping the rod is unnecessary. It's enough to put a load in it. Watch. I put a load in this rod and move it while I let it go. And the cast makes itself. The science of control theory, where we go in further future episodes, says feed the process until the result makes itself. It says worry about the inputs and don't worry about the output. If a casting instructor says to you, you have to form a tight loop, you have to make a tight loop, that's already worrying about the output. Okay, that's another reason why it's wrong. See, there's so much wrong about this loop concept that someone has to educate you. And I told you in a previous episode already that learning requires friction, and you might not like this. And watch my wave spray video, you can see it very clear there. And that is the reason, one big reason why we are all struggling so hard to learn casting. Because I fell through 3 casting exams, 2 single-handed ones and 1 double-handed one. Well, in the double-handed one, I personally think I got bullied because I was introducing a couple of these ideas and casting instructor didn't like or understand this at all. Yeah? And that's another reason why. And the next thing with the tight loop is, I think this is also the reason why so many casting instructors, and don't get me wrong, I'm a casting instructor myself, come across as so arrogant and as so poserish, bullshittish, because they take that rod off you and they say, here, this is how you do it. You have to form a tight loop here, what? You have to form a tight loop. All output oriented. They never tell you how do you feel the rod to make that tight loop, or that good cast, or that good line pitch. Because what the line refers to the rod, okay? And there is so much more to say about this, but it's just a little bit of a shock at the beginning. But once you start to get rid of this casting, thinking casts in loops, and accepting that a cast will only make itself if you put a shock through this one. I'll show you this again here, look. No shock, no cast. No shock, no cast, no vibration, no cast. Here, vibration, cast, vibration, cast. Of course the line has to be in a certain configuration in order to make the system work, but the science of control theory is where we go in the future, and I will give you proper tools to understand this whole game much better on a vibrational level, and the loop is just a marketing gag. And I fell for that gag for nearly 30 years, and you'll probably fall for it for another 100 years. But you, my valued subscriber, you are one of the few people who will be able to start a revolution and make fly fishing great again. Okay? Because imitating other people's loops is from yesterday. And I say fly casting is a vibrational, individual, vibrational affair. That's the reason why you can't imitate your favorite caster. It will never work. Oh, there's some weather coming in. A storm is coming. Revolution! Fly fishing revolution! Now, I'll show you this in the future. The loop is bad for proper casting and for good understanding, and knowledge and understanding is what the FlyQ is focusing on. And where's the rest of my rod here now? I think I fished this here before the weather gets really bad. Or there might be thunder in the air. That's probably not a good idea to be out with a fly rod then. But I wanted to show you this quickly in FlyQ episode number 5. And it is a bit of a tough one to take. But these questions are there. And nobody can tell you where the loop starts, where it begins, where it ends. It's not definable, and also nobody can tell you who, how and where and when that loop in fly casting was mentioned for the first time. I have never found a source or a credit who came up with this the first time. I think it's got popularized with Hugh Falkers, and also very heavily with Mel Krieger's book, The Essence of Fly Casting. We have to talk about these people in future episodes as well. And that is all highly, highly, highly interesting stuff in my opinion. And we're covering new ground here. And this is the future of fly fishing. FlyQ is the new knowledge, because FlyQ knowledge is also coming out of a three-dimensional space, because the loop is also only a two-dimensional teaching picture. It's a two-dimensional teaching picture. And the way how I even come to all this knowledge is the little thing I came up with called the cool cast. And that cool cast made me ask a lot of questions, because it just works so well. And control theory says if you control and feed the process correctly, the result, the outcome will make itself. Okay? And I have a fly on here now, and I'll show you quickly what I mean. I must stand out a bit because of branches here to show you this. And I also want to fish this down, so I will take you with me. Oh no, that's what I do, I take you with me, yeah. Let's go here. I'll stick you in here into my net. Grab my net. Now, where was I? Yes, the cool cast brought me onto all the thinking. Sorry, here. The cool cast brought me to this thinking because what you do with cool casting is, can you see this here? What you do is, oh, I'm stuck in the bush. What you do is, you grab this line here and form a loop over your rod. Can you see this? And then you unravel this loop and you make a cast. So I'm sorry for a shaky footage. What I will do for you for demonstration purpose, I fish this down single-handed and film with the other hand. Okay, I have a big sunray type fly, sunray shadow type fly on, and with this method here. I got stuck in a tree behind me again, sorry. But what I wanted to tell you is, I'm just fishing this down here quickly. What I wanted to tell you is, this loop here that made me think, what is wrong here with the loops? And also because this cast works so well all the time and does such a tremendous job in controlling the system, even in awkward conditions and angles. But the FlyQ is not here to sell you the cool cast. I want to say that again because but still the cool cast is cool, and it has the best fly caster mean release as well. I showed you that already too, but it makes me fish this run here very easy, and my fly is also always fishing. See this? Fishy, 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 other side of the river, fishy, 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 fishy. So the cool loop from the cool cast is what only made me think that there must be something wrong with this loop thing, or what is there wrong and why is this so wrong? And of course developments like sexy loops and tackle companies are pushing this as a principle, huh? But if you go back and if you watch my wave spray video especially, you'll see yeah, that this loop is a problem. And it's the perfect, I forgot to tell you about that, yeah. It is like the perfect poser tool to impose on people who can't cast, because you can stand there and say, here, watch my tight loops. Hey, I have such a big instructor cock, and you have to form a tight loop. Do you understand what I mean? And what happens to the people is they get intimidated, and with this wrong type of thinking, together with the casting panic that I have discovered and described in previous videos, this does your casting no good. See, I don't say the loop is bad to hurt the game. I say the loop is bad to elevate our all game, and the loop is still there. It's not that it's not there, but the loop, the true loop, is the path of the rod tip and not the line picture. Okay? Let me explain you this with a double spay. Let me explain you this with a double spay. Single-handed double spay. So This cast here starts to fish now, and my rod tip is there. And I fish this cast, and now I bring my rod tip up and I make my spike casting move, and my rod tip is here again, and this is where the whole loop reoccurs and starts again, or wherever you want to have that starting point. But this is the true loop in fly fishing. And the casting loop has just been called casting loop by some uneducated person at some time, and it has to be, and it has been taken over and posed with for the last 60 years or so. I have a book from 1964 called 34 Ways to Cast a Fly or so, by John Linden. Nobody knows that thing. It's from 1964. There's not one word about the fly casting loop in that book. That means that loop was not there before. And I give you another strong indicator that this loop is bad for our casting, and that we can't keep posing about with this shit, because the best caster in the world for 100 years, named Alexander Grant from the famous river spade, he popularized actually the whole spade game, which I love so super intense. This man, and unfortunately I haven't been able to visit his grave and spots where he was working at. This man, he built rods, and he was a casting champion for 100 years, and guess how his rod was called? It was called the Grand Vibration, right? The Grand Vibration. That means Alexander Grant, he had understood how to cast super well and super far with the help of vibrations, and not with the help of a loop. Nobody did know about a loop, and that is also a super strong indicator that the whole game is on the wrong drugs. And on the whole, this is what I mean with, in the Flycast episode, I tell you that the whole game is on the wrong drugs. And that loop is the wrong drug, because it just is there to pose and to impede on people. And the more I think about it, and the more I look into this thing, the worse it actually gets. And I can only recommend not to think casts in loops anymore. I can only recommend to think casts as vibrations. And I will tell you more about that in the future, but for today that was already a lot of information. This is usually the lie. I want to catch a fish here now shortly, quickly, and all the time as I'm talking to you, apart from the 2 double space I made, I'm fishing my cool cast here, and I'm covering the thing. Really nice, but holding the camera at the same time is of course not. Give you wave spray for the home to take home. The wave spray, if you haven't seen that video, give this a go and you might get a bit of a better understanding. And I apologize, that footage was probably fairly shaky, squeaky and squiggly, and also shot from the hip, but the information that comes from FlyQ is very valuable, and I thank you very much for your attention and that you could stay on for so long. Unfortunately it didn't work out with the fish now. I will have to go somewhere else and keep going, because that is what salmon fishing is all about. Persistence, pace, and also ability to present a fly in all occasions without getting ever tired. Okay folks, thank you very much for tuning into the 5th episode of the FlyQ, and I'm very happy that I could talk to you about this now. And it's the first time I be even able to talk about these things in public, and I wish you tight lines, everybody, and please don't forget, we don't own the water owns us.